Zohran Mamdani will take office on January 1st as the new mayor of New York City. What have we learned so far? Did socialism win or did capitalism lose? Here's the point. 33-year-old Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani's victory represents the greatest electoral triumph for the Democratic Socialists of America in that organization's history. In his victory speech, Mamdani declared, "We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for government to care about." In the words of Rush Limbaugh, I hope he fails. The growing danger isn't that socialism will succeed, it's to what lengths politicians will go to prove their thesis true. Socialism won't succeed, but it will burn everything down trying. Greater than 60% of Americans under the age of 30 find socialism favorable. Greater than 60% of Democrats approve of socialist policies. Most Americans don't consider themselves socialist, but many want free health care, free tuition, and stimulus checks. There's almost zero economic literacy in our education system today, and that's by design. Meanwhile, a debate has emerged among some conservatives. Does America need a Machiavellian prince wielding political power? Or does America need spiritual awakening above all else? How should Christians think about the growing threat of socialism? And here's the point. First, if history has taught us anything, revolutions are fought and won by the fools, not the philosophers. The French Revolution wasn't driven by philosophers, it was driven by starving peasants who couldn't afford bread. The Russian Revolution wasn't led by Marx or Engels, it was fueled by Lenin mobilizing desperate Bolsheviks exhausted from World War I against a corrupt government. The Chinese Revolution wasn't about Mao's sophisticated theory, it was about farmers snapping back against an imperial government that allowed foreign powers to carve China into pieces. Most fighters in these humanist revolutions couldn't read. They didn't know truth from error. That's what made them useful. They weren't convinced by better arguments. They were mobilized by hunger and hatred. Revolutionary leaders gave them two things, a common enemy and a way to find bread. Make no mistake, 100 million people died in the name of communism and socialism. But those who spilled their blood were fools and useful idiots, hoodwinked by charlatans and false prophets in the name of revolution. Their socialist utopia eroded in flames and has always been a dress rehearsal for hell. Second, we must understand that the attraction to socialism is not philosophical. It's rooted in material grievances. Mamdani, AOC, and Bernie Sanders aren't rising because young people read Das Kapital. They're rising because 20-somethings working 2 jobs in New York City still can't make rent. Mamdani won because Gen Z looks at the current situation and says it's not working for them. Their observation isn't completely wrong, but their solution is completely wrong. If Donald Trump is the tourniquet against big government bleeding, then socialism certainly is assisted suicide. Conservatives should not quickly dismiss the grievances young people share. If these are left unaddressed, we will most assuredly hand future victory over to socialism. Third, we must recognize material reality. America's economic system hasn't functioned as a true free market in quite some time. The U.S. government spends more money annually than the Chinese Communist Party, both in total spend and per capita spending. Healthcare, education, energy, communications, and transportation are heavily regulated by the government and hardly are examples of free market enterprise at work. Major turning points in the 20th century moved America slowly away from capitalism and decentralization. For example, the Federal Reserve Act and income tax of 1913 to 1915, the New Deal of the 1930s, Great Society in the 1960s, abandoning the gold standard in 1971, the introduction of Obamacare in 2010. Each step grew government regulation, power, and oversight, further centralizing our economy away from a market capitalist system, enriching politicians with power and oligarchs with wealth. It made conditions worse for the average middle-class American family. Since 1971, the dollar has lost over 90% of its value. The median home price in 1981 was $69,000, equal to $238,000 today. The actual median price today is $415,000, 74% higher than it should be. The average first-time home buyer today is over 40 years of age. In 1981, it was 29. That decade difference represents dreams deferred and futures stolen. Young people correctly see breaks in our system. They incorrectly blame capitalism. What they're experiencing isn't capitalism's failure. It's socialism's creep through government interference. Fourth, America's protective firewalls have been systematically dismantled. For generations, America had protections against socialism, the church, the family, and Christian education. These taught virtue, personal responsibility, and the dignity of work. For over 60 years, these institutions have been deliberately weakened. The church has been marginalized. The family has been devastated by no-fault divorce and welfare policies that penalize marriage and fathers who take responsibility. Christian education has been replaced by secular progressivism, teaching anti-American revisionism and Marxist theories. Our economy, which easily proved the merits of market-based capitalism and prosperity, has been so corrupted by government intervention that young people only see cronyism, bailouts for the connected, and barriers to entry. They don't see free market capitalism, nor do they understand its value or rewards. So what do? Christians must reject the false choice between material and spiritual solutions. We need both. Jesus gave us both. He preached the gospel and fed the hungry, healed the sick, and clothed the poor. We don't need a Machiavellian prince wielding tyranny either. The American Revolution was fought against Christian kings and despots over the proper ordering of liberty. We won that argument then. We shouldn't lose it now. We must speak truth about socialism's record. We must enact policies that enable hard work and its fruit, as well as marriage and its fruit. Cut regulation, cut government spending, cut the Fed's money laundering. We must strengthen families, strengthen churches, strengthen Christian education and small businesses. We must offer a better vision. Young people need something to love, to own, to live for, to fight for, and to die for. Christianity provides that. It even makes the conditions for a market economy to thrive with private ownership of property, the dignity of work, and personal responsibility. The gospel offers forgiveness, purpose, community, and eternal life. It offers the only framework by which human flourishing is possible both here and now. Do not be fooled by what this election taught us. Mamdani won because he offered a vision. It was a false vision, but a vision nonetheless. Conservatives must offer a solutions-based alternative that works. When something works, it's the most compelling argument against the lies that don't. The youngest generation has been failed by a big government system that calls itself capitalist, but functions like socialism light. It's high time we fix that if we're going to conserve anything. By God's grace, we will. So speak up, don't be silent, stand firm, don't be cowardly, and above all, do not be fooled.